Okay. Thank you all for joining. I can't actually see anybody now, after unfortunately. So I'll take any questions at the end. I'll try and leave some time. I've been advised by some of my colleagues who've done their IM talks just recently that I should leave a little bit of time at the end for some questions. So um, before I kick this conversation off, what I'll do is I'll just give a little bit of background on myself and how I came to Tahaluf and Informa. So I'm the Vice President of Marketing Communications for Tahaluf. I work with Mike, who's our CEO, and the senior management team very closely. I lead on all things marketing and our strategy side of things. And I work a little bit with the marketing directors within our portfolio and some day-to-day and tactical execution. I started with Informa 4 years ago. Interestingly, I reached out to Claire Puddifoot, who's the CMO for Informa Markets EMEA, and it was in relation to a project that was separate to what I'm doing now. I approached her to see was there an opportunity to work with Informa in a different capacity, and she didn't move forward that project, but suggested that I speak with some of her colleagues about a tech event that they were trying to launch over in Saudi. And it sounded interesting. It was one was a cybersecurity event, another one was a technology event, and it sounded promising. It was a 6 month contract. I was working for myself at the time, and I thought this would be good. I'll get a couple of events off the ground. I'll do 6 months, and I could do with the money. So it was all working out quite well at that point in time. As transpired, we had an incredibly successful launch with our cybersecurity bench, which was called AtHack at the time. And then we went on to launch Leap, which I think most people are familiar with from what I believe. And that 6 months has turned into now close to 4 years. So it didn't quite work out like I had planned initially. But from there, we as a business, we've grown from, I think we did $11 million in revenue in 2021, which was when we launched AdHack, and we're now closing in on probably end of year. We'll do our close to a quarter of a billion, give or take, roughly, I suspect. We're at well over 220 people in our business, and we have around 75 marketers in the business at the moment, and that's coming from a place of myself and I think three or four other people that were seconded to this project at the same time that I was. So we've scaled very, very quickly and very rapidly. And so I'm here today to talk about creating marketing excellence through building high performing teams. I'm guessing my time with Leap has qualified me in some shape or form to talk about this. So I'll add a minimum. I'm not going to try and talk through this presentation. I don't think it's the way to do it, but I've kind of just created some slides as anchors. And what I'll do is I'll try and leave everyone with some nuggets around what's made us successful, or what I think has helped us deliver the scale of the events we have as a team. And the first thing I think I'd like to touch on is like the culture of high standards that we have in our business. Um, when we thought about when I came on board and we thought about how we were going to build Leap and our ambition for it and what we wanted it to look like and how we were going to communicate to the market. The last thing and what we the last thing we did and what I really encouraged everyone not to do was to look at our competitors. And I say that because when I looked around the market at the time, in the B2B tech space, certainly in the region, we had some brands like Jitex and JISEC and so forth, and even further afield, there were things that were not standing out as impressive when, in my opinion, when it came to marketing. And when we started to look for benchmarks about how we looked visually and what we sounded like as a tone of voice and our messaging and things, we looked towards other industries or other platforms that we thought were doing an exceptional job. So when it came to creative standards, we looked at music festivals. We looked at technology firms that we thought were interesting, brands like HubSpot or Gong at the time. I remember there was a few others I can't remember off the top of my head. And it was the same when it came to messaging and our and our tone of voice. We didn't look at our competitors. We didn't look at Joytex. We didn't look at Joysec or even Web Summit or any of these individuals. We looked at Salesforce. We looked at who our customers were going to be. Salesforce, HubSpot, Facebook, Meta, yeah, same thing. But it was we were really trying to elevate ourselves to the same standard that our customers were at. And that that mentality was what became ingrained into the team. It was it was all around making sure that we were looking for the highest benchmarks possible within the industry and ensuring that what we were delivering was not better than our competitors, but spoke to our audience. And so that culture is something that we were very much embedded into the team, and that got reflected across everything from our website to our marketing collateral, our social cards, sonic branding, everything that I can think of. We were always trying to push to be the best. I remember actually the very first social media card that I got sent when we had onboarded a new designer. I always remember it was the third week of September in 21. And the new designer had just come on board, and I put him under a lot of pressure to reshape what the visual identity of the brand looked like, because we were delivering this event in 6 months. And he came back to me that week, and I remember looking at it thinking, this visual itself could be a key visual on the website. And that was the standard we always wanted to move forward with for everything that we were doing. And so when we set out to do this, we needed to put in place a very clear strategy and roadmap, because it was a very demanding project, getting these brands off the ground, and it has been challenging as we've scaled this business. We had huge success in year one with Leap, where we delivered. Our target was around 40,000 attendees. We delivered 102,000, I think, and from there we scaled and scaled and scaled. But none of that would have been possible without having a very clear strategy and a very clear roadmap as to how we were going to do this. And we've been very militant, I would say, in terms of our planning process. We're big believers that ensuring that there's a clear strategy in place and then a clear marketing plan that falls out of the back of that with timelines is in place at a minimum 9 months prior to the event. And when we look at our marketing plans, they are extremely detailed. But why they're important is all of these get shared with the team. They get shared with the wider business, from operations to sales to production. But for us as a marketing team, it helps bring everyone on the same journey. It helps outline and define exactly what we're trying to achieve, and everybody knows their part to play and what is expected of them. And that's something I'll come on to in a few moments. But what's made us successful in particular is the ownership and accountability of each individual. Everybody knows that what their roles and responsibilities are. Each individual knows what is expected of them, and that if they don't deliver on their promise, on what they're expected to do, the person that's following up in front of them isn't going to be able to deliver, their roles and responsibilities. So this is something that we've been very, very militant on, like I said, having very clear strategy, very clear goals. And one comment I would make on this, and it's a tricky one to articulate, but by having such a clear strategy in place and by having such measurable and definable goals articulated to the team, it's allowed for a culture of extreme ownership, in the sense that a lot of people have gone above and beyond on our team. A lot of people have gone above and beyond at Tahaluf. working week. The first year in particular, the first 2 years required a lot of overextension of individuals because we didn't have the resources. It required a lot of working in the evenings, required a lot of people giving up weekends in many instances. And we tried to compensate back that as a leadership team, but in many instances, people really, really overextended them. The rewards came in time with many promotions and various different things, but I tie that back to having a very, very clear roadmap. People knew what they were there to do, and they knew we were there to achieve and what we wanted to do as a group of individuals. Um, and that this is this is something I suppose that has been at the the foundation of our success, which is a sense of collaboration and continuous learning. Um, so without going into too much detail, I'd like to touch particularly on the continuous learning part because we've always been very conscious of where our strengths are and where our weaknesses are. And what we did and what we continue to do is if there are areas that we feel we would like greater focus on, we would like greater knowledge on, or there are areas that we think there's improvement required, we bring in subject matter experts to do trainings with us. And we've done this in a number of different ways, copywriting being one in particular. We work with a very I wouldn't say well-known, but well-versed copywriter who's worked with many big, as a ghostwriter for many big names, but has her own business and has worked with many companies that are somewhat similar to ours to some degree. And she came in and did a lot of in-depth training with us in copywriting for social media, copywriting for content, or whatever the case it is. Another area that we looked at as well was content distribution. And content creation. We brought in for a 2 hour session an individual called Harry Dry, who runs a platform called Marketing Examples. I don't know if anybody has ever come across that before, but he built a very successful business for himself around I would call it a marketing community and education platform for marketers. But he was particularly well known in the industry, but in certain groups for being exceptionally talented at content distribution, for creating minimal amounts of content, but being exceptionally good at distributing across multiple platforms. And so we brought him in for a training session with us to help us understand how we could maximize our efforts, because content is something that we have, or certainly that we credit with the success that we've had in our campaigns. Often what have we found again, and it ties back to not looking at competitors, but looking at our audience. When we started creating content, we were thinking about how we're going to build this brand, Leap and Black and so forth. We decided that we needed to think more like a media publisher, more like a media house. And have a year-round content process in place rather than an events organizer who would typically only run campaigns 2 to 3 months out from the event. We wanted a year-round continuous cycle. And so we doubled down a lot on our content marketing efforts, and content actually underpins a lot of our campaigns. And so bringing in subject matter experts like Harry helped us maximize the efforts that we were already putting in, but also on the distribution side. And that opened up many new audiences to it, and it helped us generate a lot of new audience and first party data and various different things. So we were very, very fortunate in the early days that we had some great marketers in place who had excellent intuition, I would say. And I can identify probably a number of people without calling them out on this call, but I think they would know who they are. People who just understood what way the wind was blowing. They understood what was working or what was working from a marketing point of view. They didn't need to lead, significant levels of data or long industry reports for them to know like what was going to deliver the results that they were looking for. Having said that, We knew that that wasn't something that could continue in the long term. It got us through the first year, 18 months probably. But what we started investing heavily in is data and insights and analytics. And how we did that was and I'm not sure if I know there are some portfolios in or business units in EMEA that worked with an agency called Oliver. I'm not sure about the rest of the other markets, but we partner with an agency called Oliver, who act as essentially an embedded agency, and they provide resource in various verticals, but whatever the capabilities you decide you want to work with them on. And we invested heavily in analytics with them. We employed a analytics director and some resource underneath in that individual. And that gave us a lot of understanding as to what was really working for us and, where the opportunities existed for us. It's something that I would say is work in progress. We're still finding our feet with different ways of analysis and reporting and all of that kind of stuff. But I'd happily answer any questions on that at the end. But Oliver's been an important partner in this whole data and insight piece, and that's allowed us to know. By getting that additional insight, it's allowed us to reshape our strategy, reshape our plans, and also confirm in many ways what we knew was working well, and maybe kind of course correct in some areas that we thought we could improve on, or areas that we think we can double down on. Um, so building cross-functional synergy, like I said, what's made us very successful is, I guess, transparency in many ways, sharing our plans, sharing our thoughts, sharing our strategy with the entire wider team. Marketing touches so many different areas of the business that there's this saying, I'm sure any marketers call may have heard this, but everyone's got their own job on marketing. And so everyone's got some input on marketing and thoughts as to how it should be done. So we've been always very, very transparent around our strategy and our plans. And that's allowed for us to get buy-in from sales, from ops, from production very early on in the process, and trust us that we are doing the right thing. And that's made it, and of course, it creates, by sharing these things earlier on, it creates the opportunity for people to share their feedback at those points, for us to give it consideration, use it where possible, maybe advise on other ways of thinking about it. But this is something that we're really forthcoming on. We believe as a team that we're all part of that same engine. So um, leadership and accountability. So this is something that I did touch on a little bit just a few moments ago. This is what's made us, in my opinion, so exceptional at what we do as a marketing team. Um, Everybody knows what they're here to do. Um, when we started out at the very beginning, it was a very small team, and we had big ambitions to deliver on. Each individual was, like I'm sure every other division is, each individual is responsible for their own particular areas and whatever the case it is. But I would say there was extreme accountability embedded within the team. And with that extreme accountability, it was never really about um, being able to blame somebody if something went wrong. It was more about the individual knowing that they played a key part and a key role in delivering the success of our events. Um, and I would say that it it not only helped us in the early days, but those individuals pushed themselves beyond what they knew they were capable of, and certainly in those first couple of years. And I think, they saw the results of their work themselves through either promotions or other opportunities in the business that they decided they wanted to go forth for. But as I've said here, leadership is very much a behavior, and it's not a title. Um, so habits that I do have some notes here. So some habits that drive excellence. Um, what I would say here is, and some practical examples, when we have success with particular campaigns. What we try to do is create playbooks on the back of those, or we try to um, or create playbooks in the back, but also document the processes. And by doing that and by being able to share that with the wider teams, we're able to continuously improve those processes. We're also able to share best practice across the business. And we're able to share, what we know worked and what we know didn't work, and other areas that people may avoid, pitfalls that they may avoid that we know other areas of or other portfolios may have previously fallen into. So playbooks, documenting processes, this is something that very much helps us when it comes to being consistent in our delivery, but also communicating across the business so everybody knows what we're trying to achieve, and celebrating the wins. I think that's a really important one. It's a small point here, but Tahaluf as a business, we've won in excess of 30 awards in the last 4 years, and the majority of them have been for our marketing efforts, and the campaigns that we've run. I think recently we had Exhibition News Awards, and last year we had AEOs and Middle East Awards and various different things. So some of the practical advice that I would give anybody that's leading a marketing team that's looking to deliver very strong results. Very clear in your marketing goals. Be as transparent with the business around your marketing best practices. I think when it comes to data, we have naturally invested in, like I said, in Oliver and data and insights. And they're very, very important. But my personal opinion is probably the best marketers know when to read it and know when to ignore the data in some instances. Maybe that's a bit of a controversial opinion, but it's important. It's important, and we've invested in it. Having strong cross-functional relationships with sales, ops, production, that's been something that's been so critical for us. Having the buy-in from our colleagues and that of course naturally builds trust. And then the extreme ownership piece, everybody knowing that what they're here to do, what they're here to deliver, and that if they don't deliver as an individual, it makes it harder for the team to deliver as a team, as a group. And so my final thoughts, and I think this is a statement that I really live by. What we tolerate becomes our culture. In the early days when we were a small team, it was much easier to maintain high standards because it was a very, very small group of individuals that were working on a small number of projects. As we've grown as a business, it's become a little more challenging. But I think if people understands that, what excellence is it's a lot of small things done right, then we can continue to maintain and build on that culture that of high performance that exists within Tahaluf. And so yeah, this is how we've started our culture, and this is how we continue or intend to continue with it. So yes, I think I've covered the main points. I've tried to leave just a few minutes for questions. So I'd be happy to answer anything if anybody would like. Yes, Hanane. Sorry, let me just pull you up here.
That's okay. I'm sorry, today I have a very blurry.
Oh, there you are. Hi.
I have a
Yeah,
very
of course.
blurry screen today, so I'll I don't know, my laptop has an issue, so I'll just turn off the camera. Thank you, Richard, for the presentation. It was very interesting. I have a question. It seems that I'm a marketeer too, but when I listen to you, it feels like what made the essence of the Tahaluf team is really much about somehow the mindset and the soft skills and the adaptability and the desire to keep on pushing standards and boundaries. Would you say that when it comes to building excellence, and to build excellence through a high performing team, the soft skills, adaptability, mindset, willingness to learn, to evolve, to optimize, to grow is as important as, the proper marketing knowledge that a marketer can have from a technical perspective. What would be your opinion on that?
Yeah, there's two things on that. The first thing is coming back and setting that vision, right? Like, when we started out that journey 4 years ago, it required a lot of overextension by a lot of people. But having an understanding of what we were trying to do and the direction we were trying to go, and I suppose it sounds, I don't know how to maybe articulate this, but sharing the dream for what you want to build, it becomes the team's dream as well. And I say that in the sense that if you're if you, when we were setting that North Star and when I was communicating that vision to the team of like, we don't want to look like Jitex, don't want to look like Jisec. We want to, speak like HubSpot. We want to speak like Salesforce. Don't even pay attention to our competitors. That standard became the team standard, became their North Star and their goal as well. And that just became a culture. That just became a culture, every time that we did creatives, every time that we did copy or anything like that, we asked ourselves, was this good enough? Like, and from a really transparent point of view, like everyone was asking themselves, and I would encourage all the team members to do it, is this the best that you could do today? Like, is this really it? And if anybody thought they were phoning it in, it got sent straight back. Do it again, make it better, make sure that whatever you're putting out is going to be absolutely the best, that you can hold that up as a gold standard. And so, yeah, like that is the other point I was going to make, and careful how I word this, but I hired and intentionally at the time very high performers and what I would consider A players. And that is, they are self-directed and self-disciplined in their own right. They may have been, more junior, but I knew they were rising stars in time as well. And they were, many of them have gone on to, multiple promotions since and other more senior roles. But hiring the right team, by bringing the right individuals and ensuring that there's a culture of excellence, yeah, is how I would probably answer that question. I don't know if that does
Thank you.
answer your question, but
Yeah, it does. Thank you, Richard. And did you find that since you scaled up, you have maintained the excellence, or is it always more challenged? Is it more challenging for you to maintain that?
the thing is that it of course it's tricky, but not everyone's built the same, and different areas require different personality types, and different qualities and capabilities. But what I would say is that probably the people that we have in our business as a high growth business, those that are in leadership roles are definitely A players. They're people that enjoy leading a team. They're very ambitious, very hungry for success. There are other individuals who are equally as important, independent contributors that that may not have the same level of ambition in terms of career and climbing a corporate ladder, maybe for want of a better expression. But they're individuals who are very passionate about the roles that they're in, and the knowledge that the knowledge that they're bringing us, and how they're developing certain capabilities. And it's a combination. It's a combination. It has been more challenging as different personality types come into the business, but everyone has a place to fit.
Thank you. Very inspiring. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you. Appreciate that. If there's anyone else, I'm happy to answer anything, or we can leave it there. If there's any questions you think of after this, I'm very happy to answer them. You can drop me an email, hit me on Teams.
And
Yes.
Richard, there are a couple of statements in the chat. Mark says, great
Oh,
presentation, great nudges to take away. And Tiffany
okay.
said, thank you, Richard, for this excellent presentation. I love looking to our customers for inspiration as opposed to our competitors. I often do that to think outside of the box. So great talk, great pieces of wisdom to share. So thank you so much for sharing your journey and your knowledge. I really love that reminder about leadership, no matter what the title, giving the people the room to lead and expecting them to rise to the occasion. Great reminder. So thank you again for sharing. Thanks everyone for joining. And like you said, if you have any questions later, feel free to reach out.
Yes, absolutely. Great.
Thanks again.
We'll
See you
leave it
next
there.
time.
Thanks very much.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
Richard.